Free? Did you say free? Free hemp? Free hemp? Free hemp video and audio? Free downloads of all the top artists, all the pot artists on planet Earth. Interviews with all the people making the movement, making the hemp movement. It's time for hemp. That's right, world. It's time for hemp. That's right, world. It's time for hemp.
Thank you for taking time for hemp. I'm your host, Casper Leach. On the program today, we are saluting some of the hardworking activists that have been dedicating their life, their energy, their time, and most of their resources to ending the war on cannabis and to make hemp a legal cash crop that can be grown all around the world. We're putting a spotlight today on Jesse Ventura. Many people know him as the former governor of Minnesota. Not everybody knows that he's written a fantastic book called Jesse Ventura's Marijuana Manifesto, How Lies, Corruption, and Propaganda Kept Cannabis Illegal. He wrote that, I think, back in 2016, and it's still a good-selling book today. You can find it on Amazon. And Al Byrne, who I'm saluting. Al Byrne is a hardworking activist who has dedicated his life to making certain that people who needed to use medical cannabis could get it without having to be considered a criminal. He is one of the co-founders of Patients at a Time. He's worked hard on educating people about the need for medical cannabis through a lot of seminars. He's also put together a fantastic book that I think you should make it a point to get a hold of. The name of the book that he's written is called For Country and Cannabis, and you can also find it on Amazon. And Al Byrne sits down with a one-on-one conversation with Jesse Ventura, and they talk about their time in the military. Both the gentlemen served in the military to protect the freedoms of America. They've also been working very hard in the medical cannabis movement to make certain that medical cannabis is freely available again to everybody who needs it. We're also doing a salute to some hardworking activists in our music. Our closing song by Cash Plow is called My Prescription, and it features the work of Jack Hare and the lyrics, and you can hear Jack in the music at one of his speeches talking about the need to end hemp prohibition and to reintroduce hemp as a cash crop so that we can start using it to make plastics, to make paper, to make clothing, to make fuel. And he's also known as one of the fathers of the marijuana movement, founding fathers, as a matter of fact, of the marijuana movement, the cannabis hemp movement. His book, The Emperor Wears No Clothes, is considered the Bible of the hemp movement. And again, he'll be featured at the end of the broadcast in a song called My Prescription. We're going to have on the program, we've got our Time for Hemp correspondents, Bud Stoner and Anita Morhai. They have put together a little expose on the work that Jesse has done with cannabis edibles. Jesse's got a brand of cannabis edibles from Jesse Ventura Farms. He launched this business, I think, at the beginning of 2024 and made the official launch April 20th, 2024 of his business. That's when he sent out the first products in the mail. As you can go online and you can order products, and I think he's even got them on Amazon. And our Time for Hemp correspondents worked very hard with the production team of Deep Dives. And the producer of Deep Dives is Albie Inman. And Albie has put together, with the help of Bud Stoner and Anita Morhai, a quick deep dive into Jesse Ventura's cannabis edible brands. And then after you hear that on the program, you're going to be able to listen to Elvie Maseka. Elvie Maseka wrote a song called The War on Us, and it'll be the second song that we play here on the big broadcast. And Elvie was one of 3 surviving patients qualified to enroll in the Compassionate Investigational New Drug Program, which meant she was getting marijuana legally from the federal government. In 1988, Elvie was arrested for growing a few marijuana plants in her backyard in Hollywood, Florida. She was facing a 5-year jail sentence, but she stood her ground, and her lawyer was able to convince the judge that Elvie was growing it for medical reasons, and so therefore the judge found her not guilty due to medical necessity, and shortly thereafter, Elvie was accepted into the federal IND program, Investigational New Drug Program, and they started sending her every month a tin full of 300 joints that was grown from the farm in Mississippi. And she has been spending most of her life telling people the importance of utilizing medical cannabis for arthritis and for joint pain and for glaucoma and for a variety of other reasons that are just too long to list here. And then we're also going to be saluting a lady by the name of Brownie Mary, Mary Jane Rathburn was her birth name. But she became known as Grandma Mary, Brownie Mary, when she was living in California. She was arrested on 3 occasions because she was giving out free medical brownies to AIDS patients. And she was arrested on 3 occasions, and each time she was arrested, it brought more attention to the need for patients to have medical cannabis to help with the wasting syndrome that was affecting many of the AIDS patients and other cancer patients. She even got to the point where she was almost giving away 500 brownies a day. And she became very famous for her diligent work and making certain that anybody who needed help could get it if it was medical marijuana that they needed. So we're going to be doing a tribute to Brownie Mary as our first song here on the big broadcast. So we got a lot going today. We got 3 great songs. We got an interview with Jesse Ventura, and we got a report about his business that I think you'll find of interest. And maybe, who knows, you'll even want to share us with your friends. And I hope you do, because it's very important that people find us and get to hear what we have to say. That way they can learn quickly how important it is to take time for hemp.
In this golden state before that 215 even took effect. Brownie Mary and the medical cakes, never tripping if she caught a case. Healing pain from AIDS, glaucoma, cancer, herniated back discs, made it possible for Kenny Estes to stay active. Put the rhyme to the beat that knocks by Ken Franklin. Seems I'm just a patient slash artist slash activist. Post-traumatic stress disorders, then I crossed the border. Granddaddy in Sacramento, organizing the smoke out. Turn up some Marley, light up the mota, blow it out. Watch some cops just glare, but then continue to smoke out. 2 at 10 with Ken Wayne and Dennis Richmond at night. Who would have thought that back then it was the beginning of a good fight? A pit bout against these patients, to shout, scream, never kicking and punching, no violence in sight. I got my rights.
That's what this war is about. Reagan never mentioned the word AIDS for 4.5 years that he was in office. During that 4.5 years, I was making marijuana brownies for 25 to 30 patients every time I could. I am pissed at the government's stance against medical marijuana.
They couldn't fit all this in the obituary, so let's put it on beats. Let's honor Brownie Mary, cannabis activist, accolades extraordinary. Hand 'em a batch of these brownies, they so unordinary. Married to Alice B. the Bias Club with Dennis P. Pair on, so we hear from there on. Freedom fighter for life, I'm Rob Son. I look to the sky in her honor, I cheer. A 1986 volunteer of the year. A living fucking saint, she did what most can't. Put her life on the line, she did what most ain't. I smoke on 420 and 825. Initials BM, two legends get high. How lot of y'all missed the day of August 25th? Give tribute to Mary Jane, a woman that wouldn't quit, yes.
And we are, all of us, by sticking together, by putting resolutions before the city councils, by changing the politics of marijuana to medicine that helps my kids or your kids or any of our kids feel better and live longer. I'm going to continue to do this until the day I die. You can bet your sweet ass on that. And the federal government can be damned. Tell them that this war on marijuana is bullshit.
All right, so get this. Minnesota, legalized recreational marijuana back in 2024.
Right?
But retail sales are stuck in this weird legal limbo.
Oh, wow.
Only a handful of tribal shops can actually sell it right now.
Okay.
It's a fascinating situation.
Yeah.
And we're about to unpack it with a pretty unconventional player.
Right.
Former Minnesota Governor
Yeah.
Jesse Ventura.
Okay, interesting.
You might know him as the Body from his pro wrestling days.
Yeah.
Or maybe from his acting career.
Right.
But now he's making waves in the cannabis world.
Ventura's not exactly a stranger to controversy, is he?
Right.
But what's intriguing here is that he's been a vocal advocate for legalization for years.
Yeah.
Even during his time as governor.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't some celebrity jumping on a trend.
Right.
This is a long-held conviction for him.
He's not just talking the talk.
Right.
He's walking the walk now.
Oh, wow.
He just launched his own brand of cannabis edibles.
Called Jesse Ventura Farms.
Interesting.
And he's doing it right in his home state of Minnesota.
Right.
Navigating this
Yeah.
crazy legal landscape.
And he's not doing it alone.
Right.
He's partnered with Retro Bakery,
Huh?
a Black woman-owned business based in Minnesota,
Yeah.
to create these edibles.
Okay.
This detail adds another layer to the story, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a savvy business move.
Right.
Aligning himself with a local,
Uh-huh.
community-focused bakery.
Yeah,
But it's also a statement, isn't it?
I think so.
Choosing to collaborate with a company that reflects values of social responsibility and inclusivity.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It suggests that Ventura is aiming to build a brand
Uh-huh.
that's about more than just profit.
Right.
It's about community,
Yeah.
ethical sourcing,
Uh-huh.
and perhaps even shifting the public perception of cannabis.
Okay, so we've got the former governor turned cannabis entrepreneur,
Right.
a unique partnership with a local bakery.
Mm-hmm. And this backdrop of legal uncertainty in Minnesota,
Yeah.
where do we even begin to unpack all of this?
Let's start with the legal gray area itself.
Okay.
Minnesota's laws allow for personal use of recreational marijuana,
Mm-hmm.
but the rules around retail sales are still largely undefined.
Right.
This has created a real challenge for entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
but also a unique opportunity
Yeah.
for someone like Ventura.
Ventura's personal connection to cannabis adds a whole other dimension to this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Ventura's been open about how cannabis helped his wife manage her seizures.
Right.
This isn't just a business venture for him.
Uh-huh.
It's deeply personal.
Yeah.
He's spoken about how cannabis saved his family's life,
Wow.
which adds a layer of authenticity to his brand.
Right.
It's hard to replicate.
It's not just about profits. It's about advocacy. It's about access.
Yeah.
And it's about changing the narrative around cannabis.
Exactly.
This isn't just another celebrity endorsement.
No.
This is a former governor putting his name, his reputation, and his personal story behind a product.
Exactly. And that's what makes this deep dive so compelling.
Right.
We're not just looking at a business launch.
Yeah.
We're looking at a potential cultural shift.
Mm.
A former governor,
Mm.
a wrestler, an actor, now a cannabis entrepreneur.
But before we get too far ahead of ourselves,
Okay.
let's take a closer look at Ventura's journey with cannabis.
Right.
What led him to this point?
Yeah.
What experiences shaped his views on legalization and the potential of this plant?
Great questions. Ventura's journey with cannabis is actually quite fascinating. His advocacy for legalization dates back to his time as governor
Oh, really?
in the late 90s and early 2000s.
Yeah.
This was a time when the national conversation around cannabis was very different,
Yeah, I bet.
much more conservative.
So he was ahead of the curve in a way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He was already talking about the potential medical benefits of cannabis,
Mm-hmm.
the economic opportunities of legalization,
Right.
and the need for criminal justice reform.
Wow.
He even wore a hemp suit to his inauguration.
Oh, really?
He was challenging the status quo from the very beginning.
It's interesting that you mentioned criminal justice reform.
Yeah.
That's a huge part of the conversation around cannabis legalization today.
It is.
Right.
And Ventura has been consistent in his criticism of the war on drugs and the disproportionate impact it has had on communities of color.
Right.
This perspective is reflected in his choice to partner with Retro Bakery,
Yeah.
a Black woman-owned business. He's not just talking about social equity.
Right.
He's putting it into practice.
It's a powerful statement.
Yeah, it is.
And it makes me wonder, could Ventura's move actually influence other politicians to take a more progressive stance on cannabis?
It's definitely possible.
Yeah.
While many politicians have been hesitant to fully embrace cannabis legalization, Ventura's high-profile entry into the industry could embolden others to follow suit.
Especially given that public opinion on cannabis has shifted dramatically in recent years.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And for politicians looking to connect with younger voters,
Right.
a pro-cannabis stance is becoming increasingly important. Ventura's actions could signal that the political landscape is ready for a more open and honest conversation
Right.
about cannabis.
And let's not forget the economic argument.
Yeah, that's a big one.
States that have legalized cannabis are seeing significant revenue from taxes, not to mention job creation.
Absolutely. The potential economic benefits of a regulated cannabis market are hard to ignore,
Yeah.
especially in a state like Minnesota where lawmakers are always looking for ways to boost the economy. Ventura's venture could be a compelling example
Yeah.
of how a legal cannabis industry can create jobs
Right.
and generate revenue
Right.
and support local businesses.
So we're seeing a confluence of factors here.
Yeah.
Shifting public opinion, economic incentives,
Right.
and now a high-profile figure like Ventura breaking the mold.
This is pretty remarkable.
It feels like we're on the cusp of a major shift
I think so, too.
in the way we think about and legislate cannabis.
It certainly feels that way.
Yeah.
And Ventura, with his unique blend of celebrity status, political experience,
Right.
and personal conviction,
Yeah.
is right at the forefront of that shift.
But let's bring it back to Minnesota for a moment.
Okay.
We've talked about the national implications.
Right.
But what about the local impact of Ventura's venture?
Sure.
Could this move actually influence the pace of legalization in his home state?
I think it's definitely a possibility.
Okay.
Remember, retail sales in Minnesota are still in this weird legal gray area. Ventura's decision to launch his edibles brand in this environment is a calculated risk,
Yeah.
but it's also a strategic move.
Almost like he's forcing the issue, pushing lawmakers to clarify the rules.
Yeah, I think that's part of it.
And establish a regulated market.
Exactly.
Yeah.
His celebrity status and his deep ties to Minnesota give him a platform to raise awareness about the issue
Right.
and put pressure on lawmakers to act.
It's almost like a real-life political drama unfolding.
It kind of is, isn't it?
A former governor challenging the system he was once a part of.
It's quite a narrative, isn't it?
It is.
And it'll be interesting to see how consumers respond to his brand.
Yeah.
Will Minnesotans embrace Jesse Ventura Farms as a symbol of local pride
Oh, that's interesting.
and support for legalization?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And it speaks to the power of branding and storytelling in this industry.
Absolutely.
Ventura is not just selling edibles.
Right.
He's selling an idea, a vision of a future where cannabis is accepted, embraced, and used to create positive change.
And that vision is resonating with people.
Yeah, I think so.
We're seeing a growing movement of individuals and communities who are embracing cannabis as a tool for wellness, creativity,
Right.
and connection.
Yeah.
Ventura's involvement in the industry could further legitimize this movement.
Right.
and help shift the cultural perception of cannabis in a profound way.
So we've talked about the legal, political, and economic implications of Ventura's venture.
Right.
But I'm also fascinated by the cultural side of this story.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Ventura, with his unique background and his larger-than-life personality,
Yeah,
challenges the stereotypical image of a cannabis user.
you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
We're talking about a former Navy SEAL, a professional wrestler,
Right.
a Hollywood actor, and a governor.
Yeah, it's quite a resume.
He breaks down those stereotypes and shows that cannabis users come from all walks of life.
Yeah.
He normalizes it in a way.
And by partnering with a Black woman-owned bakery,
Right.
he's also highlighting the diversity within the cannabis industry itself.
Absolutely.
It's a powerful message.
It is. He's sending a clear signal that the cannabis industry is not just for white men in suits.
Right.
It's for everyone.
Yeah.
And his involvement could encourage greater participation from underrepresented communities, leading to a more equitable and inclusive industry overall.
This is a story that goes beyond just one man and one brand.
It really is.
It's about changing hearts and minds, breaking down stigma, and
Yeah.
creating a more just and equitable future.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Ventura's story is about challenging the status quo, pushing boundaries, and sparking conversations that need to be had.
Now, before we wrap up this fascinating deep dive,
Okay.
there's one more layer we need to explore.
All right.
The potential for Ventura's actions to impact the cannabis industry on a national scale.
Yeah, that's a good question.
His move is bold,
Uh-huh.
but will it truly resonate with mainstream consumers?
Yeah.
Or is it primarily appealing to his existing fan base?
That's a critical question.
Yeah.
While Ventura's celebrity status brings attention, could it also overshadow the quality and innovation of the products themselves?
Yeah, that's a good point.
And will his brand be able to compete
Right.
in an increasingly crowded market?
Yeah.
These are all factors that will determine the long-term success of his venture.
It's a reminder that even with a figure like Ventura at the helm,
Yeah,
navigating the cannabis industry is no easy feat.
it's not.
There are challenges and complexities that go far beyond marketing and branding.
You're right.
Yeah.
And those challenges are magnified in a state like Minnesota,
Uh-huh.
where the legal landscape is still so uncertain.
Right.
But perhaps that's what makes Ventura's story so compelling.
Yeah.
He's not afraid to take risks, to challenge the system, and to push for a future where cannabis is not just tolerated,
Right.
but truly embraced.
You know, as we wrap up this deep dive, it really strikes me that, we've uncovered a story that's way bigger than just edibles.
Yeah, I think that's right.
We're talking about a potential sea change
Uh-huh.
in how we view cannabis,
Right.
both legally and culturally.
It's true. Ventura's venture has shown a light
Yeah.
on the complex interplay between individual action, public perception, and policy change.
Uh-huh.
It's a fascinating case study
Yeah.
in how a single person, even one as unconventional as Ventura,
Right.
can disrupt the status quo
Uh-huh.
and push for progress.
He's not just selling a product.
Right.
He's challenging us to rethink our assumptions about cannabis,
Yeah.
about business, about the role of government, and even about what it means to be a leader
Yeah.
in today's world.
And he's doing it all with his signature blend of humor, honesty,
Right.
and a willingness to challenge authority.
He always has.
It's a combination that has always resonated with people,
Uh-huh.
and it seems to be working in the cannabis space as well.
It makes you wonder if Ventura's foray into the cannabis world
Yeah.
is just the tip of the iceberg.
Could be.
Could his actions inspire a wave of other public figures, politicians, athletes, entertainers, to embrace cannabis and advocate for its acceptance?
It's certainly a possibility.
Yeah.
We've already seen a growing number of celebrities and athletes investing in cannabis businesses or launching their own brands.
Right.
But Ventura's move feels different.
I think so, too.
He's not just lending his name to a product.
Right.
He's putting his entire reputation on the line
Yeah.
for something he believes in.
And that kind of authenticity is hard to fake.
It is.
It's clear that this isn't just a business venture for Ventura. It's a mission, a movement,
Right.
a way to create lasting change.
And it raises an important question.
What's that?
What will be the lasting legacy of Jesse Ventura's cannabis journey? Will he be remembered as a pioneer who helped usher in a new era of acceptance and legalization? Or will his venture fade into obscurity?
Right.
A footnote in the ever-evolving history of cannabis.
Only time will tell.
That's true.
But one thing is certain.
What's that?
Ventura's story has sparked a conversation that's not going away anytime soon.
I agree.
And that conversation is about much more than just cannabis.
Right.
It's about personal freedom, social justice, economic opportunity, and the power of individuals to challenge the status quo and create a better future.
So as we conclude this deep dive, I'd encourage you to think about Ventura's story.
Okay.
Not just as a news item, but as a catalyst for reflection.
I like that.
What does this story tell us about the evolving landscape of cannabis? How can we as individuals contribute to a more just and equitable cannabis industry?
Yeah.
And what role can we play in shaping the future of cannabis, not just in Minnesota, but across the country, around the world?
Because ultimately, the future of cannabis is not just up to politicians or entrepreneurs.
I agree.
It's up to all of us.
Absolutely.
It's a future we create together through our choices, our actions, and our willingness to embrace the possibilities of this remarkable plant.
And that's where the real deep dive begins.
Thanks for joining us.
Three generations of hemp, cannabis, marijuana prohibition greatly contribute to planetary deforestation, pollution, and ozone destruction. Let hemp compete in construction, paper, fiber, fuel, nutritional, and pharmaceutical corporations. Cannabis has been safe, efficient medicine for many illnesses throughout all generations and for natural relaxation. Still, we spend hundreds of billions of dollars and throw away our Constitution to continue this insane persecution.
Looking for their medicine. They, their friends, relatives, and physicians constitute a large segment of the 11 million otherwise law-abiding citizens with criminal records due to this prohibition.
Good day, folks. This is Al Byrne representing Veterans for Compassionate Care. And we have our guest today. As always, we try to have a military veteran or their caregiver or someone that has a deep interest in the medical legalization efforts surrounding cannabis, especially how that relates to our veterans. So today we have a veteran of the Vietnam War, a compatriot of mine. I think we were there about the same time, Governor. I was there in 70, 71. I think you were there in 69, 70. Please welcome Governor Jesse Ventura.
Great to be here. Actually, I didn't deploy until February of 71. I went in the Navy in 1969, but I spent well over a year just going through, basic and then A school, and then I went through BUDS, Basic Underwater Demolition SEAL Class 58. I got done with that. I went to 3 weeks of Army Airborne Jump School. Then I went to Sears School, Survival, Escape, Resistance, and Evasion. And then I went to what at that time they called SEAL Cadre, or Advanced Guerrilla Warfare, which was about 6 to 7 weeks in the Nyland, California desert, where you got with your platoon and you ran ops every night. And then I actually deployed February of 1971 for 9 months, and then came back. I think it was around November of 71. Spent another 6 months at home, and then deployed a second time for 8 months, July of 72 until March of 73.
So you did 2 tours in Nam. Was that as advisor or were you regular Navy there?
No. Actually, just one, because my second tour they had pulled us out already. I guess we were achieving peace with honor, and so I went to a bunch of other places. My second tour, I went to Korea, Philippines, a whole lot of places in Southeast Asia.
Well, thank you for your service, Governor. But we're here today to talk about your book. It's called Marijuana Manifesto, and you do have a co-author named Jen, Jen Hobbs, and there is also a foreword in the book by Mr. Steve Covey, who is a friend of mine, or he's not a friend, but he's a cohort of mine, and he's a great guy, and it's a great book. But I was wondering if you could just start off by telling us why you thought this book was necessary, and why you put it together like you did. I found it very good. So you made a lot of good comments. You had some good political thoughts, and you backed it all up, chapter after chapter after chapter, with references and science. If you could just give it all to us and go for it, we're listening.
For me, it came down to I had lost my quality of life. Life as I knew it would never be the same again. And in essence, I can unequivocally state that marijuana saved it. Someone extremely close to me developed epileptic seizure disorder and was seizing 3 to 4 times a week sometimes. And this person got put on 4 different pharmaceutical medicines by doctors. None of them worked. All of them had horrible side effects, and the seizures continued. So in desperation, we went to Colorado and we got, quote, medical marijuana, which was for seizures was 3 drops under the tongue 3 times a day. The seizures immediately stopped, and now we don't have to go to Colorado because it's been, what they call medical marijuana, has been legal now in Minnesota, but with a great deal of restrictions on it. And because of these restrictions, what cost us $30 a month in Colorado costs us $600 a month in Minnesota for the same thing. And so, logically, I could probably make trips to Colorado and come out on the better end of the financial deal on the whole thing. But I can unequivocally state that now this person's been seizure-free for 2.5 years. That was when I decided to get into it and start creating this book along with Jen Hobbs. Still seizure-free, is completely off all pharmaceutical medicine, and I know there's other people out there suffering. I know there's other people out there being denied a natural substance that can cure and heal many medical conditions today, and we're being denied this by our federal government, who wants to act as our parent, who wants to tell us what we can or cannot use health-wise. They want to be able to do this, and they're now in a minority opinion because over 50% of Americans today say that all marijuana should be legal. And let me state this. The people that smoke marijuana for the high or the euphoric feeling, that is likewise medical because they're doing that for mental health. I would rather have somebody smoke pot than I would get put on Prozac or some other antidepressant pharmaceutical drug that has side effects to it where marijuana doesn't have many side effects to it. And it's a natural thing. It's organic. It comes from the ground. If you believe in God, then that means God created it. So what right do we have to destroy something God created if you believe in God? You know, for all the religious people out there. And so, it goes on and on. And here's the real big point, and the point that I really opened my eyes in doing the research for this book, is that when you start reading the history of cannabis marijuana in the United States, you find out that today, if George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and Ben Franklin were alive today, the DEA would be raiding them. They would be busted federally. They would probably all three be serving 10 to 12 years as major drug dealers because their major crop was marijuana. And marijuana, when you read the history, was the economic backbone of this country for its first 160 years of existence. In fact, you could barter with the British and exchange marijuana as opposed to money, and it was completely acceptable back in those days. Now you ask, what could have gone wrong? How could this generator that drove our economy for 160 years end up being bastardized today? Well, it's called William Randolph Hearst. He was the big paper or the big newspaper guy, owned 26 newspapers, and he also owned thousands of acres of timberland. Well, here's another tidbit for your listeners out there. The Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and Betsy Ross's original flag are all made out of marijuana or cannabis. So it's pretty all-American when you think of it, and you think of the creation of our country. But getting back to Hearst, Hearst wanted to corner the market. Now, when you live in a capitalistic world, capitalism means competing. It means competing against other people in the economy. Well, Hearst was a capitalist, all right. He felt that the way to compete was to become a monopoly. So he did what they do today. He paid off the politicians in Washington. He used his 26 newspapers to put out that marijuana was a devil weed. He used racism completely, because let's remember back then, in the 30s and the late 30s, we were completely a governed white people country. Minorities were not even considered back then, pretty much. And so he blamed marijuana, the devil weed, on blacks. He used racism there, saying the blacks smoke it and they'll rape your wives and they'll rape your daughters. And I kid you not on what he said. He used it on Mexicans or brown-skinned people, claiming it was marijuana that made them all lazy. He capitalized on these supposed stereotypes of people of color, and he used that to perpetrate the myth and then finance a movie like Reefer Madness, which is the biggest joke you've ever seen, and the people bought it. And he then got paid off Congress, and they made marijuana hemp illegal, and we were then forced to buy his timberland to produce wood to create paper. And so that there you got a history very quickly of marijuana that you can read more in depth in this book. And when you do read about it, you'll be outraged over what they did to us. And so I grew up in the 60s. I grew up when marijuana resurged into the psyche of the young people. It came out of the Jack Kerouac era, the 50s and the beatniks, and really out of the Deep South. The black musicians, Satchmo himself, Louis B. Armstrong, one of the greatest people in the planet, said he smoked a joint every night before he played. He felt it made him play better. It got him relaxed, and it got him in tune with his music. So, and again, it was portrayed, all your great black musicians of the South, Muddy Waters on down the line of Howlin' Wolf and all those people, Robert Johnson, the great guitar player, black guitar player whom Jimmy Page, Eric Clapton, Jeff Beck, and all of them talk about, the great Robert Johnson, who allegedly sold his soul to the devil, is the story behind him. But anyway, marijuana then came out in the 60s strongly with the hippie movement and the anti-war movement. And of course, when the war ended, our country seems to be a country that has to be at war at all times. Because we've literally been at war my entire adult life, because when you count the war on drugs. Well, in 72, Richard Nixon got the bright idea to start the war on drugs, and thus it began. Then became marijuana was being looked at in a different light, but all of a sudden it became criminal again. And what's interesting about it today...
Governor.
Yeah.
Governor, from your book, sir, you stay with Nixon a little bit. Because in your book, you quote Ehrlichman, right, about why really Nixon started this war. Could you just sort of give us the background there?
I don't remember everything we wrote in the book. I can't quote Ehrlichman off the top of my head because the book's hundreds of pages.
The idea. He was interviewed by an author named Scott Baum recently for an article in a magazine. And Scott has written in the past a wonderful book about the cannabis, the same stuff that the governor's talking about how the federal government has messed with cannabis over the years. It's called Smoke and Mirrors. But Baum went to Ehrlichman, and I can't quote him either, but what he basically said was that Nixon started the war on marijuana, or the war on drugs. It was really a war on marijuana. But it wasn't really a war on marijuana. It was really a pogrom. It was a pogrom against those that were anti-war, which you just brought up, and it was a war on the blacks, and he was just going to use the war on drugs to subdue those two groups, and damned if he didn't. But that's what.
And so it's done by design, and marijuana was the excuse used, to wage war on black people of color, and then to wage war against any type of peace movement. And like we tie it into today, we got all these veterans coming back, and I like to proudly say I was opposed to the Iraq war before they even went in, and yet I was shut up. I don't know if you know my history on that. Would you like to hear it for a moment? It's interesting. I came out of office the hottest commodity out there. I was the independent governor from Minnesota, the voice of the independent, and Fox, MSNBC, and CNN got in a bidding war for me. MSNBC won. I signed a 3-year contract with them. I was supposed to have my own show 5 days a week. Well, they were trumping up the Iraq war at the time, and it came out to them that I opposed it. They immediately wouldn't allow me on the air. They had Phil Donahue on that time. They had brought him back. He opposed the war. He was taken off the air immediately. So there was no one out there speaking out against the invasion of Iraq, and it was done by design. I was under a 3-year contract, so in essence, I couldn't talk to any media or do any television shows or offer my opinion in any way, shape, or form for 3 years because I had to honor the contract, and they paid me. The whole contract, in essence, silenced me. Pretty interesting, huh?
It's a plan. It's executed. It's hypocritical as hell. It's full of lies and holes. It's based on opinions, not science, and it's just total bullshit. But that's just where we are.
It comes back, guys, to money. Always remember the great movie All the President's Men about Woodward and Bernstein and breaking Watergate and all that? Remember when Woodward goes down into the bowels of that parking ramp and his source deep throat tells him, follow the money? Well, 99 out of 100 times in dealing with government, follow the money and you'll get your answer. That's the answer with marijuana and cannabis too. Follow the money. Because here's the rub. You can grow it in your backyard, which means poor people wouldn't have to buy it from pharmaceutical companies. It means they wouldn't have to pay taxes to the government. I grew up in the inner city of Minneapolis, South Minneapolis, and every summer my mom would churn up a third of our little backyard, and she'd grow tomatoes, so we'd have fresh tomatoes all summer. I remembered growing up. And you could do the same thing with marijuana. You could grow it in your backyard, you could get the benefits from it, and you wouldn't have to pay anybody. That's the major rub. I'll tie it in like this, and I know this is a stretch, but hear me out. It's like prostitution. When you look at prostitution, okay, 2 consenting adults can meet each other on a street corner and have all the sex they want as long as they're consenting. Yet the only thing that makes it illegal is if there's an exchange of money. It isn't the sex acts that cause it to be illegal. It's the exchange of money. The government wants to be the pimp. They want to cut to the action, and that's why it's illegal. The same thing holds true with cannabis or marijuana. You could grow it in your backyard. You look at the pharmaceutical companies right now, what they did with this stuff that people need for bee stings. Did you follow that? Where they raised the price 400 times to where now it costs $500 a shot from something that cost $20 before. Well, see, that's what they have in line for marijuana. When they legalize it, they want the Anheuser-Busch companies. They want the big cigarette companies to run the whole thing, the corporations, and they want to deny you as an individual the right to get it for free. And so that's the real rub.
Wait a minute. Well, I agree with you, Governor, on that. By the way, the University of Mississippi, where the U.S. government has their federal pot grown for the patients that I work with, costs them about $2.50 an ounce to grow it. But my thought is you're absolutely right on the money, but isn't the money now changing? With all of these states going legal or medical, we have new jobs. We have another part of the medical industry getting educated on the use of the cannabis. There's laboratories, and the taxes that are being collected are enormous. And then, of course, we can go to law enforcement. Everything's down. In the legal states like Washington and Colorado, violent crime is down, DUIs are down, suicide's down. So maybe the money's going the other way. Am I right? Am I wrong?
Yeah, it certainly is locally at the states, and that's where the legalization will take place like it is. You're not going to see that the only way this is going to be legalized is for people like you and people like me and all of us to be vigilant. We got to keep the heat on. And as each state passes it, pretty soon what will the federal government do when all 50 states have declared it legal? This is the issue that could bring people to rise up. You know, people in this country want a revolution. You saw the Sanders people, you see the Trump people. Believe it or not, they want the same thing, only they're from both sides of the spectrum, so they'll never get together on it. But the point is, people want to get control, and marijuana could be the issue. Because over half the people want full legalization now, and it's the federal government that's being our parent. It's the federal government telling us we know what's best for you. And this is a chance for us to rise up and tell the federal government this, that we are in charge and that they work for us, not the other way around. And this could be the key issue that could bring back our country to its people, to where the people are back in charge and not the bureaucrats in Washington.
The government's dropping their prohibition of cannabis. What would you see? Sort of an ABC store type thing, as well?
Well, no, you see it. You see it being treated identical to alcohol and tobacco. Treat it the same way. It's like people ask me at book signings, well, wait a minute, Governor, what do I do if it's legalized and I catch my 12 or 13-year-old son with marijuana? You know what I say to him? I tell him a simple answer: parent. I said, treat it the same way if you caught your kid with tobacco or at age 13, and if you caught your kid with alcohol at age 13, or any of them. Treat it the same way. Be a parent. And if you parent, your kids won't have a problem with it.
Well, I agree there.
And like I said, if they do legitimate legalization, poor people can grow it in their backyard. They don't need to pay nobody. And that'll certainly drive the price down, won't it? The price goes up with prohibition. It goes way up with prohibition. When you prohibit something, then they can charge 10 times more for it because it's illegal. But the minute it's brought above board, put it this way, do you see anybody out there committing crimes to get alcohol or tobacco? No. Dory, you want to hear a funny story? I remember in the wrestling days, we were in San Francisco, and I was with Bobby the Brain Heenan at the time and a few of us, and we were going out to dinner after the matches, and we were going to this specific restaurant in Frisco, and as we were walking in, there was a bum there that was bumming a cigarette, and I'll never forget Bobby, who smoked, pulled out his pack. He saw he had 4 or 5, so he hands the guy the whole pack. He says, here, take the pack, I'll get another one. So we go inside and we eat for an hour. We come back out, and the same bum is waiting for us. And when we walk out the door, he walks back up to Bobby Heenan, hands him back the pack of cigarettes, and he goes, they're menthol. In other words, I mean, you had to laugh. He waited out there. You give the guy credit for being honorable. He bummed the cigarettes. Yeah. They weren't his brand. They were menthol, so he waited a whole hour just to return them. There's a guy with honor. Beggars can be choosy, I guess.
I'm a student lately of Washington State, where Veterans for Compassionate Care, the company that I run, is located actually in Spokane. And we're going to use cannabis, Governor, as an exit agent, if you will, from opiates, pharmaceuticals, alcohol, nicotine, whatever a veteran may be having a problem with. They'll come into a health arrangement that will include all of the standard modern technologies dealing with addiction and things like that, but it will also have one of the main parts of the program. The protocol will be the use of cannabis.
What we need to do too is re-educate people on addiction. You know, people get very frightened of addiction. Well, wait, people get very frightened when they hear the word addiction. And they should understand that addiction is a disease, that addiction needs to be treated medically, and yet we seem to insist upon treating it criminally. People can be addicted to many things. Take a look. Imagine, let's do a hypothetical here for a moment. Imagine if tomorrow morning you could make all the Starbucks and coffee in the United States disappear and people couldn't get their caffeine fix. What do you think would happen? You'd have chaos.
You'd be breaking in.
You'd have anarchy. You'd have people getting killed over a cup of coffee. See, that you got to bring it into terms that people understand. And when you bring up the fact how many people cannot get up and start their day without their caffeine fix, well, the same holds true for obese people and food. They're addicted to food. Obesity is a huge problem today. Obesity can be cured. All it takes is willpower, a little bit of exercise, and eat right, and you won't be obese. See, that's what people need to understand is addiction comes in so many different forms and so many different things, and the public, we as humans, tend to be addictive personalities. We get addicted to things. We like things. We develop mental addiction. Some things are physically addicted. Caffeine's a physical addiction. So is chewing. I was addicted to Copenhagen for 20 years. I chewed a can a day. Man, when I quit that cold turkey, one of the hardest things I ever did in my life.
Did you even think about using cannabis as a help for that?
No, not at all. I had gone to the dentist, and I had what we call it a Copenhagen callus. It's like a callus in your inner lip. And my dentist was my old swimming teammate in high school, and he looked and he said, "What's that on the inside of your lip?" I proudly said, "Oh, that's my Copenhagen callus." He said, "Well, that's wonderful." He said, "Would you like me to tell you what it really is?" I said, "What is it?" He said, "It's a lesion." He said, "As long as it's benign, you're fine." He said, "If it's malignant, within 3 weeks, we'll cut a third of your face away." I drove home that day thinking about my children, not so much them, because they knew me already. But I thought, if I have grandchildren someday, I certainly don't want to be a monster and have my grandson not want to sit in my lap because I look like a monster. And so I came home that day, I threw my can of Copenhagen in the trash, and I told my wife I won't chew again, and I went through hell, because at that time, the gas pumps were set up where you could pump the gas, but you had to pay inside. Remember that? Well, every time I'd go inside to pay for my gas, there'd be stacks of Copenhagen on the counter. Now, how easy to beat an addiction? If I were addicted to cocaine, or I were addicted to heroin, or anything like that, what would happen every time I filled up with gas if I went in and on the counter were stacks of heroin and stacks of cocaine waiting for me, just like there were stacks of Copenhagen waiting for me. And all I had to do was say, "Oh, and give me a can of Copenhagen," and I'm hooked again. But I managed not to do it, and I knew I had it beat when I could play 18 holes of golf and not load my lip.
I'm gonna make sure my son-in-law hears what you just said. He's an ex-NHL hockey player, and those guys chew all the time, and he still chews. And anyway, I'm going to let him hear your story. As I understand it from my military dentist, that lesion is caused by little glass particles that they put in the chew, and that cuts into your skin, and that allows the nicotine to have a faster area of oral mucosal area to get the nicotine into you. But I just want, for my audience here, Governor, the initial patient that you talked of that had epileptic problems, was that an adult, and was it a male or a female?
It was I won't say gender, but it was definitely an adult, not a child. And this person had this person had no other seizures in their life, so it was a later in life epileptic disorder.
And there's no seizures.
And today, no seizures whatsoever. For 2.5 years now, not one seizure. The person takes a pill in the morning and a pill at night of marijuana with the the THC is the stuff for euphoric. What's the other stuff again? OMG or whatever it is. I don't know their initials. CBG. There you go. This person can't handle the THC, so gets completely the other, and that's what causes it to be expensive.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a good thing. We recommend, the medical experts recommend a whole plant idea, so that would have THC in it. But as you mentioned, this person's tried it with a little THC in it and does not like it. This person likes it better with no THC. And it's working. I just want the audience to understand that CBD modulates THC activity. So any psychoactive activity that might be put in with the THC, what you do is you counter that activity by raising the percentage of the CBD. In some cases, we have a 10-to-1 ratio. In some cases, we have a 1-to-1 ratio. But this is all in the beginning stages, in the infancy stage of dosing for medical cannabis patients. And what we have learned is not only are different plants capable of different medical outcomes, but these ratios between the CBD, the THC, and other compounds which are active in the plant is very, very critical based on the patient. So I'm happy to hear that your patient, Governor, found something that would help them. I also just want to add to. Go ahead.
Let me just say this: it's given our quality of life back. That's how much it's helped. we had lost our complete quality of life. If you've ever had to deal with anybody that has a seizure multiple times a week, 2, 3, sometimes 4 times a week, your life ends because you have to take care of this person, and it could happen anywhere. And I attribute it completely to marijuana, the savior.
Well, it seems like it. You're the witness, and we believe you. That's what this show is about, to bring on folks of credibility that have had experience like you have had, not personally, but again, as a caregiver. That's important testimony. And right now, about 2.5 million people are hearing you. So thanks for the story. I just want to make a point that when you're talking about black and brown people that Mr. Anslinger and his crew and Hearst and all those guys went after, just a side story, but Pancho Villa, the Mexican bandit who was not so much a bandit in Mexico, took 800,000 acres of Hearst property in Mexico on which he had his pulp trees growing and never gave it back to him. So I think that might have Pancho might have pissed him off a little bit.
Well, and I always like to finish with this, guys, for those that are out there that are patriotic. Remember this, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and Betsy Ross's flag are all made out of marijuana. How can anything be more American than that? What's that?
Sales on old onsides. The sales on old onsides, all the rigging. Actually, the first building ever put up in San Francisco was a canvas, not a canvas building, but a sail building. They took the sails off one of the ships that brought them there and made it a lean-to kind of affair in San Francisco. That was the first place that anybody stayed out there. There was a white guy, and it was hemp.
Yep.
You couldn't. So let's do hemp. Let's do hemp for 10 minutes or so. What's hemp?
Well, what hemp is simply the male plant of marijuana. And you know what's interesting about that? Back in George Washington's day, they knew the difference. Because in Washington's diary, he was very angry because he allowed his plants to cross-pollinate, so he ended up with all hemp. And he was ticked off about that. So obviously, even back then, they were using the euphoric cannabis and separating it from the hemp cannabis, you know? And all hemp is simply the male plant. That's what you make paper out of. You can make wood out of it. You can make all biodiesel fuel. Willie Nelson uses it for that. It has so many usages, and here we are eradicating it. You know, we want to get off Middle Eastern oil. Well, let's start growing hemp and producing biodiesel fuel from it because it's the best provider there is. It regrows to 15 feet every summer. Nothing could be better.
And it's clean.
Yeah.
Clean fuel.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, a couple of sidelines. Thomas Jefferson, when he was Secretary of the State in France, to just piggyback on Washington and everybody, he was a smuggler. He brought cannabis seeds back into the United States in his pouches that were not to be opened because he was a dignitary, a diplomat.
Well, I don't know if it was. I don't know if it was smuggling back then because cannabis was so wide open and marijuana growth was the economic backbone of the country. Like in the Deep South, we always think it was cotton. It wasn't cotton until they invented the cotton gin. Prior to the cotton gin, the South was growing marijuana.
Lots of it. Kentucky especially. But no, he stole those seeds. The Europeans knew what they had. They had particular strains that were particularly good, and they kept them close to the chest. They didn't sell them or give them away or let anybody have any. No, Jefferson brought them back for us or for himself. I live very close to where his home is in Charlottesville. It's still there, of course. And a number of years ago, I got a PhD buddy of mine to request that we be able to allow us to take scrapings of existing pipes that are still held there at Monticello that were Jefferson's, and they wanted to know why. And we said, because we want to see if there's any cannabis residue in there, and they said no.
Yeah, of course, they don't want to know the truth. Guys, here's the final big thing. We're all looking at the economy right now. And for people out there, look at the jobs that are waiting to happen out there. You've got profits. This year, Colorado has $300 million new dollars to spend on the taxation of marijuana. The state of Washington has seen initially a 15% drop in their statewide judicial budget. That's huge. And the benefits, look at all the people that work in the tobacco industry. Look at all the people that work in the alcohol industry. You would have the same type or bigger employment in the hemp marijuana industry if it's made legal. It's jobs waiting to happen. It's the economy waiting to be held up again and supported by cannabis rather than us paying billions and trillions of dollars trying to stop it. If I had my druthers and I was the president, I would be moving to make it fully legal, and you would treat it identical as you would alcohol and tobacco. And those that, now naturally you don't want people, you wouldn't want them smoking pot and then attempting to do their jobs. But that, you have to give people the benefit of the doubt. You have to give the people, I was professional enough in the military to know better. When it was time for me to operate, I didn't allow anything. Just as I wouldn't drink before going on an op, I'm not going to smoke reefer before I go on an op either. I want my head clear. I want to be able to think. I want to be able to survive. And so I think just you treat it like an adult. You treat it the same way you allow tobacco, the same way you allow alcohol, and certainly veterans who come back with post-traumatic stress should have all the access in the world they want to any type of marijuana they desire to use because they're already in trouble. And anything that can help that trouble, I consider that good. The doctors are owned by the pharmaceutical industry. So therefore, and to me, they're not doing their jobs. They're violating their oath because their oath is to do no harm. And when they see someone who's harmed and they won't allow them to pursue something that could help the harm they're receiving, then the doctor should be kicked out from being a doctor. But that's the big problem here that they faced initially. Pharma told all the doctors, don't you be writing scripts for marijuana in Minnesota. And the doctors here went along with it. There's only like 1 or 2 doctors in the whole state that's doing it right now. All the rest of them won't touch it. The big thing is to put the pressure on these doctors that won't do it and say, wait a minute, you're violating your hypocritical oath. Your oath is to do no harm. If you don't allow people to use this product, you're extending to them harm. This person in my life, where would I be today if this person were still on the 4 pharmaceutical drugs they put the person on, which didn't work? They all had horrible side effects. And today the person takes no pharmaceutical drugs, takes 2 pills of marijuana morning and night, and is seizure-free. It's as simple as that.
I completely agree with you that the medical community, not so much the nursing community, but certainly the doctors of the United States have abdicated their responsibility in this regard. However, look who they've abdicated it to. Nothing disrespectful to these particular work groups, but the guys that are making our legalization laws, certainly the ones that are making our medical cannabis laws, are doctors and cops. Doctors, they're lawyers and cops, not doctors and nurses. They're lawyers and cops. They don't have a scintilla of information or education in their head about medicine. Yet they're practicing medicine without a license.
And so, that's because
we're controlled.
That's because you have cowardly elected officials like Hillary Clinton. She was asked about it, and she said, well, we need to do more testing. No, we don't. That's the typical political cop-out. The testing's been done. That university in Israel knows just about everything, and they're financed by us. The doctor over there has already came out the head. I forget his name, but he's like the expert. He said it would help head trauma in the NFL. It certainly would help post-traumatic stress amongst our veterans. He went on and on and on and on with the list of all the help this drug, cannabis, marijuana can do. We don't need any more testing. What we need are politicians who have some courage and who get elected to do the right thing, not cover their own political ass.
Well, that's the answer, yeah, but wow. That's Dr. Raphael Meshulam at his laboratory, and he is the grandfather of cannabis science, medical science, and has been known to be that since about 1964 when he actually isolated THC as a compound in the plant. One thing I just want to go back to the Veterans Administration's policy. I just want U.S. veterans to understand that if they live in a state where the medical cannabis law has made it legal in some regard, and they do all the proper paperwork at the state level with their doctors and whatever you got to get a fee. If you do everything that's required, you take your that information into your VA office, into your VA hospital, into your VA outpatient clinic in that legal state, and you will be treated fine. No one should give you anything but help in how they integrate that cannabis as part of your medical protocol in that VA facility. And that's true in every legal cannabis state, D.C., some of our territories. So we're talking here, our governor and audience, about millions and millions and millions of veterans who are able to use cannabis and use their VA facility without a problem. And again, if you have a problem,
I'd like to interject one final thing, and then I got to go. Here's what I'd like to know.
All right.
I'm a veteran, and I served 6 years honorably in the United States Navy, yet I can't even go to a veterans hospital.
Why?
I make too much money. Now, what's with that double standard? So in other words, if you're a successful veteran, you get screwed. But if you're a homeless veteran, you can go and you have nothing, you can go out and get everything from the VA. And I know other veterans like me. We've come out of the service, we've been successful, and the bar is not very high. If you own your own home, you can't even go out there. They will deny you. And they'll tell you, if your financial status were to change, please reapply. I'm outraged over that. A veteran is a veteran. Why should you be discriminated against because you happen to be a successful veteran? And I understand we need the VA for all the unsuccessful veterans, the homeless veterans, we definitely do. But I'd like to know why there's a double standard, because to me, a veteran is a veteran. And if you're a veteran, you should be allowed to go to the VA hospital, but you're not allowed if you're a successful veteran. And I appreciate what you're doing. Keep up the great work and keep helping those veterans and keep working to get them the help that they need, because it is utterly ridiculous that our government will deny them something that can help them after they serve their country. And it's just absurd. Thanks,
Governor. Take care.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, folks, that was Governor Jesse Ventura. His book is called Marijuana Manifesto. Governor Ventura wrote this book with a lady named Jen Hobbs, and there's a foreword in it by Steve Cubby, who's the founder of the American Medical Marijuana Association.
You are listening to the Time for Hemp Global Broadcasting Network. Please share us with your friends.
A new study reports that 1/4 of all school children have used illegal drugs before reaching high school.
And that's the major concern. Other recent studies show that the younger children are when they begin smoking cigarettes, drinking alcohol, or using marijuana, the more likely they are later to become addicted to hard drugs like heroin, cocaine, and crack.
Hemp is a safe drug. Hemp, marijuana, cannabis has the lowest toxicity of any drug known to man. Tobacco killed approximately 400,000 people in America. Alcohol, 150,000. And no one in the long history of mankind has ever died from marijuana that wasn't shot by a cop.
See, I need an OZ of the OG Kush, so I can concentrate and bubbles, trimming the Afghani bush as I clip and manicure almost each and every cola, slinging ounces to the shop, trying to be a high roller because it sound like Yola. Plus it's legal in Cali. You can find it in the club or on the street or in the alley or a hemp rally. You even see it on the news. Cancer sticker or natural. Which one will you choose? If you snooze, you lose. Better get your ass a card so you can have a quarter pound and 7 plants in the yard. And if you get pulled over, they giving it back. No charge, no harassment. They gotta return your sack. Take heed to what I say, cause I won't say it again. again. No, not from the hands of my chinny chin chin. You can smoke it, you can eat it, it'll never be defeated. It made $16 billion last year, and so we need it. We need a OZ of that medical OG at the Cannabis Club. I can copper QP. We need a OZ of that medical OG at the Cannabis Club. I can copper QP. Make it funky, take a checker from the neck of you in the world of green. When I crumble, I won't fumble if you know what I mean. Let me tell you about the time I went down to the bud shop. Picked up the fat sack, then we rolled it like non-stop. Fat blunts and gas bars, some widow makeup. It's a one-hit coma, I need defibrillator. Bless my chest like I'm punched from Chuck Liddell. I'm choking on this top grade, yeah, I can tell that the goodie is good and the fluffy is right to sell. Got a hash up in my brownies, THC up in my cells. The alcohol kills you, so I stick with the herb. The one to legalize it, make it sound absurd. Cause everybody gotta have it, I believe in liberty. To the sun, air, water, soil, and seas. Cut the greed, my prescription's nature made. Drug company flipping script cause they trying to get paid. We need a OZ, of that medical OG at the Cannabis Club. I can copper QP. We need a OZ of that medical OG at the Cannabis Club. I can copper QP. Where you from?
Southern California, go to the store, get the weed at the corner. Show love, get 2 dubs for the price of 1. That's just a burn at the crack of the sun. What you smoke? Something post. What you choking? Approaching the roaching. Now I'm talking. Blunts I dissect. Afghani Bubba, blueberry train wreck. OG of the whole P and the green crack with some white widow. Got your vision going black. Got the skunk in the trunk. Just the funk that'll make a punk feel like he's sunk to a chunk. Sinister black, hand me the sativa with the blunt and the lighter. Watch me relieve ya with some indica from the homie cash flow. Cause the West Coast carries more than a stash load.
OZ, all that medical OG at the Cannabis Club. I can copper QP. We need a OZ of that medical OG at the Cannabis Club. I can copper QP. Make it funky.
And it's hemp for medicine. Cannabis has great medicinal value for easing pain, relieving stress, treating illnesses such as glaucoma, asthma, nausea, epilepsy, migraine, wasting syndrome from AIDS or anorexia, arthritis, multiple sclerosis, and beyond. Hemp is the best, safest medicine. You live longer if you smoke hemp than people that do no drugs at all. You live 8 to 24 years longer than people that use alcohol and tobacco. So by those standards, you'd have to be out of your mind not to smoke hemp.
Education and information. See what all the buzz is all about. It's time for hemp. It's time for hemp.